This is the Jack and Poii podcast, wherein we talk about anything and everything about the game. I'm your host and creator of Jack and Poii, Alexi Menardo, and I'd like to welcome you all to this 4th episode of the podcast. This week we have another video podcast wherein we give you a literal look into the Snickers Chamber. So basically this is my place, aka the Snickers Chamber as well, and this is all where the magic happens essentially. So where all the development of Jack and Poii happens, where I do all my emails and what have you. So the place is pretty bare right now and has been bare for the last 3 weeks, the 3 weeks I've been here. So let's go through the place very quickly. Alright. So first thing you'll notice is, of course, as you enter the door are my shoes. Not much of a shoe person, so everything's just there. This is, yes, that's the frame of my bed, which I haven't used because I lost the bolts that connect them together. So the thing you'll notice, and why I keep this ancient bed frame around, is that, okay, I don't know if you can see this, but you see how that I don't know what you call it, the top of that pole, the top of that corner of the frame has been chewed out, quite literally, and that was because of my dog. So I used to have a yellow Labrador, and I called him Ace, and he slept in my room before, and he basically chewed on that, and that's essentially why I keep this frame. It has a lot of sentimental value for me, so that's why I keep it around. So hopefully I'll never have to get rid of that, but you know, sad thing is I eventually might. So okay, so the most interesting parts of the room. Well, okay, so I'll go through the entire room first, and then I'll basically focus on the more interesting points. So there's one of my shelves, the other shelf right here, and this is, you know, the boring old kitchen, or the lack of kitchen. Small fridge, which is not even plugged in, just the microwave is plugged in, and some orange juice right there, and then the sink. So some laundry over here next to my trash can, which I bought, which is pretty pricey for a trash can. It's around $12 US, but I liked the whole portally look of it, so I bought it. So there you go. So these weird dividers, actually, birch dividers, were from the previous tenant, who actually didn't really stay here very long. So I'm not sure if I'm going to keep them. This one I'll definitely keep and have used as a sort of hanger for my backpack. And this one, it really depends how cramped the place will be once my TV is in the room. So as you'll notice, there is no TV. That's where the TV is supposed to be. Right now it's just a blank space. Alright. So my other shelf, and then of course my working table. So the light sensitivity has been adjusted, and here we go. So there's the other shelf, which I'll go through a little later. Here is my work desk, and I'll go through that later as well, my chair. And of course my electric fan. I do live in the Philippines right now. It's a tropical country. Very, very hot, especially today. My God, super, super hot. So there you go. I don't use the air conditioning because I don't want to spend too much on electricity. That's how cheap I am. And here's my bed without the frame. So I essentially sleep on the floor. An IKEA rug right there. My closet where my clothes are, which I will not open because they're so very disorganized. Some stuff over here, my laptop bag, which I hang in one of the hooks. I have a Starbucks mug, whatever. I don't really use them because I don't drink coffee, but the good thing is at least I can put some change there. So coins whenever I do my commutes, and what have you, my wallet, my watch, and then my Wacom bag right there. and my camera bag with the Intuo Swacom box right next to it. Chair, not chair, a table, bedside table supposedly, with some tissue, and my bathroom, which shouldn't be of much interest. So, okay, so going back, let's look through the more interesting parts of the room. First of which would be this shelf. So yeah, I'm a big collector of stuff, and this is not even all the stuff I have. So these shelves are really the focal point of my room, I would say, of the Snickers Chamber as it is now. And okay, so let's start from the top. So I have a couple of collector's edition things over there. So yes, I am a big gamer, much like hopefully all of you guys who are listening. So I have my Fallout lunchbox. It's tin, which is pretty cool. I even kept the plastic still right here. So that contains a few games in it, essentially. And I have a Spawn figurine here, behind which is my StarCraft Collector's Edition, StarCraft 2 Collector's Edition. So there you go. It's the top portion. Next portion, you'll see a few more DVDs, PC games, including Dead Space, Guild Wars, and some of my DS games. Some of them are still in storage. And then some of my books from a previous life, essentially. So, for those of you who don't know, I used to be a 3D artist, or somebody who tried to be a 3D artist anyway. I was serviceable, I guess, at best my skills, but nowhere good enough, I believe. So this is a picture of myself and my girlfriend, of course, the boss. Just a little froggy over there. And these are essentially the only books I've ever read. Actually, just the Harry Potter books. So I'm not much of a reader, but these books, I own all of the books of Harry Potter. And I've read all of them. So some music CDs over there. And again, more books from a previous life. So these are all my attempts, essentially. Some history about myself. All my attempts to try and secure a career or a life in video games. So you'll see a book about Maya 7, so a 3D modeling software, so that's when I was a 3D artist. A few more, so lighting and rendering, more Maya stuff, 3D Studio Max stuff, that blue book over there, so Imagine Effects books, blah 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 blah, even artistic anatomy, because I wanted to be able to model anatomically correct models. But then of course that never happened. But anyway, it was a good attempt all the same. And then of course you have your action script stuff. I tried to do some Flash programming before, was unsuccessful, but thankfully now I'm doing quite well with Objective-C programming. Okay, so let's move on to the other shelf, which is more interesting. So at the top you'll see my Uncharted 3 Collector's Edition, and if I can just grab it, I can show you that. So my girlfriend gave this to me for Christmas, and if I can just show it to you, I haven't even really touched it, haven't had time to play it. If it would just stay open, and as you can see, the actual game, if I can grab it really quickly, so the actual game, if I can just put it there, is still sealed. It's still in its plastic. If I can focus on it a little bit. There we go. Alright, so it's still sealed. So I haven't been wasting time just playing video games, if you guys are thinking that. And yeah, it's still there. And of course, more games, of course. So at the top shelf, so sort of inaccessible. Not really inaccessible, but not really my eye level, a little higher. We have my Wii games, or some of them anyway, and then some PlayStation 2 games, some software, and what have you, and my Wavebird, which I really love, and some more soundtracks, which are my more precious soundtracks right there, or CDs, musical CDs. So the thing I wanted to show most on this top shelf would be, here we go. So at the top of all my Wii and GameCube games is this, the Super Meat Boy Ultra Edition game. So Yeah, so normally just a downloadable game, Super Meat Boy, but then Team Meat decided to release a physical copy of the game, which is pretty neat, and they called it the Ultra Edition. So I bought this simply because, you know, I really felt that I owed Tommy and Edmund a lot. So they were one of my main inspirations for going indie and really just giving this new life of mine of sorts as an indie game developer a shot, and hopefully, you know, it'll pay off. But yes, it's a signed copy right there, which is pretty sweet. So I have this installed, but I haven't really played it that much simply because I don't have that much time anymore doing the podcast, developing the game, having work, having freelance work, and all of that stuff. So all of my free time, you know, not that I regret it, not that I feel like I don't have any time to enjoy, because I do enjoy the whole development process and getting in contact with a lot of people, talking to you guys, talking to my listeners, talking to artists to do work for the game. It's all fun, but then that just leaves me very, very little time to actually play anything. So the thing I want to show in terms of my CDs are these two at the end. So if I can just grab them. So the first one is the limited edition Shadows of the Damned soundtrack. So from Akira Yamaoka. So it's actually signed as well. So I don't really have much use for physical CDs because they're all in my iTunes library anyway. But yes, that is Shadows of the Damned official soundtrack right there. Pretty sweet. Oops, it's the opposite way. Nice. And then of course the Bastion soundtrack by signed by Darren Korb. So that is really, really sweet as well. So probably my favorite soundtrack of the year, together with Sword and Sorcery. Speaking of which, there is the Sword and Sorcery soundtrack as well. So the LP, I actually got the LP. And of course, I really don't have any use for these things, especially an LP, because I don't have a record player at all. But, you know, the things you really feel strongly about, I just couldn't help but grab it. So that's why I have the actual LP. Now, as to when I'm actually going to be able to play this, I have no idea, but it just makes me feel good that to support, you know, people who I really believe in, people whose work have really inspired me to do the work that I'm doing right now. So that's pretty cool. So thank you, Jim Guthrie. All right. So moving on to the second shelf, essentially. That's where my games are. So, I mean, of course, more games, but my PlayStation games. So, not complete. Some friends have borrowed it, left some in Vietnam, and then I have a couple of collector's editions here. So, Resident Evil 5, right there. Show it, Resident Evil 5. And the last collector's edition to the end is Dark Souls. So, probably my game of the year for last year, simply because I played so little games last year. Sweet. You'll see some equipment. So this is the mic that I use to record the podcast, which I will use later on for the introductions and basically the power plug for that. So I have a couple of board games here, as well as Samcube's package for me with the possible giveaway of that soldier art that we have. So I have Munchkin, so Steve Jackson games, which is a fairly sweet, what do you call this? Sweet card game. So these are basically things that, you know, have indirectly inspired me to do Jack and Poii. So Cutthroat Caverns, however, I've never even played. So I just bought this a month ago. So purely for research purposes. So it's a card game. It's one of the more popular card games, as I've been led to believe. And I thought it would be cool to actually play it. Maybe I can get some ideas for Jack and Poii. So that's pretty sweet. And then Wits and Wagers, of course, although family edition only, which is fine. I just played yesterday with my girlfriend's family, and we had a lot of fun. So next is again from a previous life. Well, not really a previous life, but still my life now, but they're not really educational. They're books that feature a lot of the things that I like. So I have like an Alex Ross book over here, which is actually super cool. Maybe we can have Alex Ross in doing some art in Jack and Poii eventually, who knows. So Absolute Watchman right there as well. So a couple of Neil Gaiman books, so 1602, Sandman's, and Coraline. So this is pretty sweet, actually. I want to show you this. So my Coraline copy. So Neil Gaiman has come to the Philippines a couple of times. So I had the opportunity to have a couple of books signed. So this is one of them, my Coraline. And if not mistaken, my Seasons of the Mist is also signed. So let's take a look at that. There you go. So Alexi's Sweet Dreams. Yep, so it was mine. I didn't buy it off of eBay or anything like that. That is pretty sweet. And I have another book that I left in Vietnam simply because books are very heavy to transport. And that was signed as well, thanks to my girlfriend again. So some hard disks. I have like 4 or 500 gig hard disks right there on top of each other. So lots of reference and stuff. And pictures mostly. And here we go. So this is actually, yes, from a previous life. So these are all reference books that I wanted to get as a 3D artist. So a lot of them are ballistic books. So Expose, Essence, Exotique, D'Artiste, or however you want to pronounce those things. But yeah, these are very, very sweet books. Very high quality stuff. So this one's for Gears of War. So at the time, huge hype over Gears of War. Hardbound stuff. Really, really cool. So yeah, so this sort of explains, I mean, all the books that you've seen that, you know, are very much art inclined is one of the reasons why I wanted Jack and Poii to be really, you know, it doubles supposedly as an art collective. So just meeting all of these artists, being a frustrated artist myself, is sort of, you know, super exciting. So if I can't make the art of my game, then why not just invite all of these talented artists to do it with me? So yes, it's frustrating that I can't do my own art, but then, you know, just gotta admit what your weaknesses are and what you need help in, and, you know, it opens some doors. So I'm just very happy to be able to be working with all of these talented artists, very nice people, and hopefully the game will be successful, if only to pay them back for all of their contributions to the game. So the last level is just a bunch of stuff, so some more toys which I don't want to open anymore. So okay, so here are my magic cards. So for those of you who are skeptical of my competency as somebody who would make a card game, well, this is sort of proof that I am a pretty big fan of collectible card games. So oh yes, so this is actually my black box is my Tolarian Academy deck. So let's take a look at that, actually. So this is probably my pride and joy, simply because the deck is so sort of imbalanced. I'm pretty sure it's banned, or at the very least type 1. So you can't, it's not really tournament legal. So let's take a look. So for those of you who aren't familiar, there are several ways of winning in Magic the Gathering. So it's either you reduce your, look at that sweat. It's either you reduce your opponent's life from 20 to 0 and you win, or you can actually deck him out. So essentially, he has a few cards in his deck, right? And he keeps drawing cards every turn, or you force him to draw. And once he runs out of cards and he's supposed to draw a card, then he loses as well. So the beauty of the Tolarian Academy deck is that it doesn't kill your opponent through, you know, reducing his life points to 0. It decks him out. So it's actually fairly, it's a machine, essentially, right? So it's one of those solitary decks, they call it, I think. And what it is, it's basically the deck, a kind of deck that you can play by yourself. Because essentially the idea is to beat your opponent as quickly as possible, right? So that's what this deck does, and that's why I love it. So this is my table. Right there. So it's a pretty big table, and it doesn't have much in it relative to its size, but I like that because it helps me really concentrate on what I'm doing. You know, the less clutter there is in your workspace, the better. And I even, you know, try to do the same on my desktop. So okay, not the most non-cluttered desktop, but just to have folders in it, and I don't have a wallpaper, as you notice. So that's one of the supposed productivity tips I've gotten off the internet, and I think it's worked for me because at least I never have to worry about my wallpaper anymore. So I was listening to the 8-4 Play podcast earlier. Nice, very nifty podcast, probably my favorite podcast right now, so you guys should check that out. Of course, my favorite, second only to the Jack and Poii podcast. Okay, so anyway, so that's my laptop, who I've named, or anyway, so I even named my laptop, and she is called Snickers. So I wonder why, right? So you guys figure out who Chamber is. All right, so I have my mug, so I know that makes me look vain because it's actually my face in it, but I didn't have that made. A friend of mine gave it to me, a former office mate of mine gave it to me a few years ago, so that's why I'm using it. I have my Wacom, my small Intuos 4, and I have my iOS devices. I have my everyday phone, my iPhone 4, my iPhone 4S. Well, not really mine, it's my dad's, but he doesn't use it. So that's why he just lent it to me, essentially, or gave it to me. And then I have my iPod Touch 3rd generation, which I bought solely for development purposes. So these two, I don't really use. They're really for dev purposes, just to make sure that the game works on all platforms. And then you might be wondering, where's my iPad? I don't have an iPad, but my girlfriend does. So when it comes time to develop the iPad version of Jack and Poii, then you don't really need to worry. So see, only one's active, the other two don't even turn on because they're shut down, okay? So of course you don't need to have all of these devices when you're developing a game. I just, wanted to make sure that the game will run fairly smoothly on everything. So my iPhone 4 is actually on iOS 4.35, and then my Siri is essentially is updated already to 5. Whatever the latest version is right now, and the iPod Touch is also on iOS 5. So different iterations so that I can make sure that the game runs smoothly on all of them. So I have a Logitech wireless mouse right here. I'm not really too happy with it because it's sort of sluggish. I don't really know why. Maybe it's just really my settings, but I have no idea. So a mug with some pens and whatever. And of course the picture with the boss and then some stuff. So yeah, so there you go. So that's a quick look into the Snickers Chamber. Very bare, as I said, but hopefully things will look better eventually. I'll have a TV and more stuff in it. Makes it look more habitable, makes it look more professional, I suppose. But as of now, I just wanted to show you guys what the place looks like, just so that you can follow what changes we'll be developing from now on. And just wanted to show you guys how normal a person I am. So if ever you guys want to develop iOS games as well, you can, because I'm doing it, and who the hell am I? I'm just a normal dude. So okay, thank you so much for taking a look at my place. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. Thanks. Next time on the Jack and Poii podcast, we answer all of your questions.